In a 2008 MSN article, while reflecting on License to Kill, film critic Norman Wilner said of Timothy Dalton that he got a raw deal. The actor who could have been the definitive 007 had the bad luck to inherit the role just as the series was at its weakest, struggling to cope with its general creative decline and the end of the Cold War. Little can be said about how Dalton's Bond career could have gone had he continued to play the role in further movies, but one thing's for sure. Timothy Dalton, we hardly knew ye. With Timothy Dalton's second and final appearance as James Bond, director John Glenn, in his fifth and final time as director of a Bond film, chose to break the mold by introducing a few big changes to the series, while mildly attempting to maintain some of the things we know and love about the series. A long way from stopping the world domination plots of eccentric megalomaniacs of yesteryear, this time, Bond is singularly focused on exacting his revenge for the loss of his friend Felix's wife and leg. By far the most graphically violent 007 film up to this point, we find Bond on the hunt for drug lord Franz Sanchez, a villain reminiscent of 80s drug kingpin Pablo Escobar. Accompanied by the beautiful Pam Bouvier, an ex-army pilot and CIA informant, Bond finds himself brutally murdering henchmen like he never has before. With a hit song by Gladys Knight, this film will be the last for several key players. Besides the aforementioned Dalton and Glenn, this is also the final Bond film for Robert Brown as M, Caroline Bliss as Miss Moneypenny, David Hedison as Felix Leiter, who also played him in Live and Let Die, Albert Cubby Broccoli, and Maurice Binder, creator of most of the main titles thus far. This is also the last Bond film of the 1980s, ending an era with a 6-year gap between this one and the next Bond film, the longest gap between Bond films that there ever has been, even as of today. When Bond next returns in 1995, he will find himself with a new face yet again. But for now, come along with Harris, Collin, and myself as we take a deep dive into Timothy Dalton's last chance to blow us away in 1989's License to Kill.
I'd like a private table. Lecture.
Please don't bet that you'll ever escape me. Once again, my silence so good. Kill.
Your weapon. Effective immediately.
Am I going to win or lose?
Lose, but not much.
Don't spare me this sentimental rubbish. We're not a country club 007. No.
We're not running a country club 007.
All right, that was a great, another great jam from
Tim Got Rhymes.
Yeah. Shout out to
Killing
Tim for our opening
License to
theme.
Killing It.
License to Killing It.
I actually made a paper license for him to kill it.
Did you bring it?
No, I didn't laminate it either, so it's not really.
What kind of a license is that? One of them newfangled licenses that you scan or whatever. It's got your passport in it somehow. You know what I'm talking about?
Government ID, the new government ID thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all getting cut.
Yeah.
And we're joined again by Alex. She came back. We didn't scare her off. She's going to engineer for us again today.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
She does not have a mic because
She's
I couldn't
bowing
find an
graciously.
XLR cable, but she appreciates it.
You didn't have to tell why. You could have.
Well, I didn't want people to think that we didn't want her to talk. We do want her to talk. She just doesn't have a mic.
Silence.
While that
Stop
song
your
was playing, Matt made an important correction to our board. We had License to Kill written in big letters. This movie is called License to Kill, and license is spelled Licence, as opposed to License. The difference is, in America,
We're not stupid.
well, you could put it that way. Here's an interesting thing. Do you guys know what the difference between license and license is, depending on how you spell it? Because there is actually a difference. License
is it like when we say I'm going to take license in like when we're talking, that then we use the CE, but if it's a
good
if
and
it's
confusing guess, but
noun,
wrong.
It's
that's it. That's actually
Okay.
it. If it's so in America, it's always license with an S. everywhere else in the world that English is spoken, every single place, including Canada and of course England, where this movie's from, license with an S is the noun. Like I have a license to can I see your license to kill?
Right.
Whereas license, like you have permission, the verb is spelled with a C.
But there is some document somewhere in the MI6 that says like it's okay for him to kill, right?
Well, yeah, I guess it could be either way.
'Cause I like to think of it like that.
Yeah.
I almost wish M like made him like take it out of his pocket and then M tears it up in front of him.
Well, like he's
Just
got like a
pulls
a
out
driver's,
this
he's got a
unlaminated
driver's
piece of
license.
paper.
What was the other card he had? His remember when he had the
boob
Playboy
inspector.
Casino Club card.
Yeah,
He's got one.
Playboy Casino
His
Club
only
card,
form of ID.
Yeah, his federal boob inspector card,
Federal
and
boob
his license to kill. They're all just jammed in the same. He's got like an enormous wallet. It's got all these like novelty cards and also a license to kill, a license to murder human beings.
I've got a license to hunk your boobs.
So
It's just like a piece of paper with a stamp on it. And
The
the
bottom-
stamp doesn't even have all the ink across the whole thing. It was really quickly stamped.
the bottom line is, in the eyes of the world, we are totally wrong, but in the eyes of the USA,
Suck it everywhere else.
USA.
All right, so let's get into this. There's a lot to talk about with this movie. A lot of
Beyond the
changes.
title?
yeah, I know. We're 27 minutes in. All right, where should we start? I guess.
We could start with a budget.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Some of the technical specs. You already said a bunch of the people that are leaving the thing, but this was a $32 million movie that made 156. It's remembered as a failure, but obviously it made plenty of money.
It's the lowest grossing of all Bond films, I think, right?
Yeah, they were shooting for after The Living Daylights. The previous film made 190 million. They were hoping this would make 200, and obviously it fell well short of that. And more importantly, it wasn't enough to save the constantly faltering MGM United Artists. It seemed like United Artists was always in trouble, but I don't know if another 50 million would have changed things. But the financial instability of the studio was part of what led to the film's sort of disappearing on
was my
throughout
chair.
the early.
I thought that came from your mouth. You were like, yes.
Yes. I adjusted my chair, and it shocked everyone in the room.
Yeah. Back to the budget.
Well, I was just pointing out that the reason that it took so long to make GoldenEye, part of it was that the studio was like insolvent, which, of course, having this movie, which was their big linchpin franchise, underperformed this year. But in reality, this movie did make money, just didn't make
As
the
much as
typical
they
James
wanted,
Bond money.
yeah.
It made a profit.
And part of the reason it might have done so poorly relative to other ones is because it came out in a summer that saw. Anybody want to list them off?
I'll do the list. Batman, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2, The Abyss, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, Ghostbusters 2, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. All the same summer.
So it was like one of the biggest money-making, or like one of the first big blockbuster summers that we're also used to.
Well, I think about it this way. I was 4 years old. I've seen every single one of those movies, and most of them more than once. I think I've only seen Lethal Weapon 2 one time, and I've seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids probably more than once, but I don't remember because that's like a kid's movie.
This is the first. I remember this summer very specifically. This is the first Bond movie that I really remember when it came out, and I remember seeing Batman in the theater. I remember seeing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the theater. These were like, it was a big summer for movies.
Are you talking about the 1960s, Beth?
No.
No, but it is like this is sort of an important landmark film for me because I remember elements of the other things. Like I remember them, thinking Pierce Brosnan was going to be the next James Bond, but I don't remember, the last film when it came out or anything like that. I do remember this one being in the theaters and this summer. And just this year, I mean, this is also the year that Roadhouse came out, Tango and Cash. Somehow The Abyss, Leviathan, and Deep Star 6, there were 3 movies about deep sea monsters that came out this year, which is totally
It's not
freaking
enough if you
bizarre.
ask me.
Yeah, and there have been like 2 since then in history, but for some
Sphere?
reason
Have you
in
guys seen that?
'89,
Yeah, I've seen Sphere. I almost read the whole book. I read most of the book.
But in '89,
We should
people
do
were
a
like,
podcast about Sphere.
"We need underwater monsters." We should do a podcast about Roadhouse.
Yeah, we should.
Let's do it in one.
Sphere.
This is the Roadhouse Sphere podcast. We'll be talking about Roadhouse and Sphere only every time.
Welcome to episode 207.
Once again, we're tackling Roadhouse and Sphere. With
so
no-
good.
Yeah, it does.
We can alternate the orders in which we discuss them every time.
What do you guys think of Samuel L. Jackson's performance?
Again, I'm gonna say it again. I've said it many times, but Samuel L. Jackson is always good.
But he's no Sam Elliott.
He's no Queen Latifah, am I right? She's in that.
Anyways, the end result was subsequently no Bond film has been released in summer. They usually get dropped in fall or winter now.
Yeah, they're
Usually
always
the
fall
last
or
summer
winter.
release, right?
Yeah, they learned their lesson and decided to stay out of that crowded marketplace.
I remember seeing Spectre in November.
Mm-hmm.
There was a cold November rain.
All right. Let's talk
I'm just
about
going to cut straight to the laugh.
let's
on
talk
that.
about the cold open. I think this is one of the most insane cold opens, and most, not insane, but it's the most different. It's the most connected to the plot of the rest of the movie cold open that I think we've had thus far, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's kind of disconnected and or loosely
Every once
connected.
in a while, like The Spy Who Loved Me, it was sort of giving some background to context. And
Right.
sometimes it's showing something bigger that's happening in the world that will eventually lead to James Bond. This one directly involves James Bond,
The main
and
villain.
directly involves the main villain, and directly motivates every action that he takes for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
It's true. And to me, like one of the problems I had with the movie is like seeing right off the bat. The movie expects you to be paying a lot of attention the whole time to what's going on because there's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of it is good stuff, but you'll miss it if you're just like casually watching the movie.
See, I did think, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I didn't think, compared to some of the other plots, this was, I thought, less convoluted and made a lot more logical sense.
It's the presentation. The presentation was always like, this guy is like this. Did you catch it? Okay, we're going to the next thing. You know what I mean? Like, this thing is happening like this. Keep watching. This is going like this. It's like, this is a cool plot, and like it makes a lot of sense, but the presentation is expecting you to really be like keeping up with what's going on.
Give an example, because
There's a lot of characters, a lot of like
Oh, there's
side-
tons of characters.
side
and
yeah.
they're really
villains.
rich characters. I'm going to skip ahead to Wayne Newton. That's a great character. It's based on televangelists, and he has like a whole world to his character. You know, he's got like a temple where he does the televangelism from.
But it's a front. It's a front.
It's all a front for
They
the
do
thing.
it all without a lot of screen time either.
Right, but this guy, you know, he most likely has multiple books, and he televises a show every day, and with his screen time is like a minute or two, and he tries to like, you know, get with one of the women because he's trying to use his power as like a cult leader to do that, but that happens within seconds. And you have to pick all of it up, and it all makes sense, especially in the time frame. In
But now-
1989, you're going to be aware of these televangelists who are like cheating on their wives and stuff like that, and you're going to be like, "Oh, I get it. He's that."
Yeah, you saw
But
this hypocrite televangelist.
Right,
Yeah.
but for us, it's like you got to pick that up really
Now, did
quick.
you
It's
feel
just
like
coming
we're-
at you. You know
did
what I
you
mean?
feel like
And
you
that's a
were
little
missing
side
stuff?
character.
Because I feel like what you're saying is I would think that's a plus of this movie, because it manages to, it doesn't tell you any more than you need to know. Yeah, it is counting on you to pay attention and pick up on some little clues, but it manages to shape several really well-rounded characters in you know, despite it being kind of an ensemble, because it's trusting you to sort of pick up what they're putting down.
This movie truly is an anomaly, because I think, like, I found myself interested, or like, I guess the word is like, I found myself paying attention because I kept thinking like I had to, and ultimately the movie ended and I was like disappointed, or
Yeah.
like, it's a good movie. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like a lot of expectations and a lot of I don't know, like not enough action between, like, sandwiched between the scenes of like actual plot happening where you have to pay attention to.
But the action sequences are really good. But then I also, some of the action sequences, like, this is a really cool action sequence, but we've got a lot of what they put a lot of in was like the A-team shooting. You know what I mean? Where it's like just people shooting at you, but they're not hitting anything.
Right.
And there's a
Right.
ton of machine guns being fired
And no one getting
and
hit.
cuts to people firing machine guns, and it's just like you get the sparks.
Well, that's because they're all inaccurate shooters. Bond has just that little pistol, and he's nailing guys in the first shot every time. I think we've jumped way ahead of ourselves into analysis. Let's go back to the cold open.
right.
So it starts with Bond in a limo, right?
The DEA in America has found out that this drug dealer, Franz Sanchez, is in the Florida Keys, and they only have a short time to act. So their first thing they do is to spend some of their limited time going to find a 60-year-old CIA operative on the way to his wedding and abducting him from his limo. Right. Like Felix, is he the best tactical resource for this mission? Is he indispensable? They can't get like some young guys who are good at shooting and rappelling out of helicopters to do this for him?
My feeling is that this is one of the investigations that he's been working on.
I think they make it pretty clear that is the case, that this is his collar. But do they necessarily, if time is of the essence, is it really the best use of their time to like go fly around, find him in the limo, and then he's like, "Oh, hey, let's bring my buddy the MI6 agent, for kicks." Like I
this
don't
guy's
know.
gonna come with us.
Also, he's gonna take charge of the entire operation when things go
He's
tits
foreign.
up. Just in case, like when it all blows up in our face, he's just gonna take over and save the day.
Hold
Which
on.
is
Somebody give me a gun to give this guy.
exactly. They hand him a pistol and he hands it to Bond, and he's just like,
"This is a
"Only
foreign
in an
man who's
emergency."
your wedding guest, sir.
Yeah,
Give him a gun. Did you hear me?"
I like how they're like, "Don't worry, we'll be back, Quarrel. I mean, Sharky."
Oh yeah, Sharky was such a quarrel.
Yeah, Sharky
Oh, poor
is a
Sharky.
quarrel.
Sharky is this is one of Felix's groomsmen. So Felix and Bond and Sharky are all on their way to Felix's wedding, and they're dressed up in these very fancy gray tuxes with tails and top hats. And then Felix gets his call from the DEA that this guy he's been pursuing has been spotted in the Florida Keys, and they got to go find him. So he and Bond hop in this helicopter and head to this airport to find this guy, and they leave Sharky holding the bag to tell Felix's fiancee Della the bad news. But like the whole situation is totally absurd. But
You know what is funny though? I think Della has the best screen chemistry with Timothy Dalton.
that may be
Which
true.
is really weird.
But the cold open actually, I think it works once you get past the absurdity, because I think Robert Davi, who plays Sanchez, flashes some of like he's got like some charisma. He's a good villain. He's charming. He's confident. He's daring and smart. Like he
I would say
stupid,
he
though.
might be the best performance in the movie.
He's got a very strong performance, and you get a little taste of that in the cold open. And also, he's ruthless and he's a murderer, but you can see the charisma. And at the end, I think like he ends up escaping, and then they chase him down.
He does the whipping thing in the cold open.
Yeah, he also he catches his girlfriend cheating on him, and he
right.
cuts her lover's heart out. Or he has young Benicio del Toro cut her lover's heart out, and then he whips her with a stingray tail.
But you already get like the heightened violence right off the bat.
Yeah,
off
you
the
get
bat.
a lot of violence, a lot of screaming, and then he takes off in this Cessna where he's got this drug shipment that he's running off with, and Bond and company chase him down in a helicopter and hook Bond lowers himself down onto the tail of the Cessna and hooks it up to a wire, and the helicopter basically just drags the plane away, but not before swinging over the church where Felix is supposed to get married. Mm-hmm. So Felix and Bond can parachute out of the plane, helicopter,
Yeah.
and land at the wedding, and go into. And Bond has a bullet hole in his top hat and everything, but they're all happy to see them. And I thought it was really good. I thought it had a great ending, and it was one of my favorite cold opens.
I wonder how long. Did anyone clock how long it was?
It was pretty long.
Yeah.
It was pretty.
There's
long.
several scenes in there.
Because it has a lot going on. You've got to get introduced to the idea that Felix is getting married, and then this guy is in town, and then we see the guy, and he's killing his girlfriend's lover, and then we see the drug deal, and then we see him escape. There's a shootout there at the airport. Then the whole stunt sequence. But you know what I liked in the plane? It's all practical. You actually
really
see a
cool.
guy descending onto the plane, hooking the wire up. Then you see a helicopter dragging a plane through the air. Then you see guys parachuting out of it.
Do you
Yeah,
think this
all
inspired the cold open to The Dark Knight Rises? Did you guys see that?
I think there's definitely a similarity there.
Where they turn the plane like this way? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's definitely like a. I wouldn't be
this plane.
surprised.
Crashing this plane. No survivors.
Exaggerated Bane voices.
But anyways, am I alone in this cold open? I think it's pretty good.
I like it. It
yeah.
is still like I said, it comes at you with a lot of stuff. Like the Lupe, the girlfriend, her
Katana
cheating.
from Mortal Kombat.
Katana from Mortal Kombat, obviously. her cheating thing, that's like a whole like a whole big part of her character and a whole big part of the plot, but it's also a really small part because this movie comes at you with so
But
much.
what more did you need to know? That's what I'm saying. They introduce these elements efficiently, and they don't dwell on them because they're going to be important later.
It's the kind of thing that it's almost like you have the kind of quantity of story elements you would have in a series almost. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay,
Hinting at backstories that will
yeah,
be revealed
you get,
later.
each
and,
character has this, rich
What's
story.
how does that detract from the overall?
Yeah, it makes it rich.
Because as a person who watches TV in 2019, that's all made for binge watching for like 11 hours. Like that's how they actually take stories like that and handle them now. And I've gotten to see that.
This
So you're
is my new
saying
pitch.
I think that
movie
might be
was
better.
ahead of its
definitely
time.
no. He's saying that we should definitely pitch this as a series, License to Kill remake as a limited series on Netflix.
Yeah,
License
pretty much.
revoked. We'll use the original
Because-
title.
Yeah, there you go.
Because the other big problem is like the scenes with the actresses and Bond, like the love stories, they didn't do a good job with that.
Well, and there's a couple of things. There's a couple of elements. I think one is that I think they're trying to get away from the girls being window dressing and just sexual objects, which I think is a good thing. But I think
They did a good job with
this
that.
is around the era, and especially because Timothy Dalton later said, at the time they never admitted it, but there was a question or a rumor that Bond wasn't allowed to have sex as much in this movie because the AIDS crisis was pretty much reaching its peak levels of panic. And nobody would admit it at the time, but years later they did confess that there was less sex in that movie for that reason. And so I think that I don't think that it's a bad thing. I mean, you're right. The chemistry is flat, and there's no excuse for that. But I don't think the idea of having sort of more fleshed out characters with backstories that we don't get more of is necessarily a negative. I think it works. I mean, I liked having all the characters.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, like how bad are like the love scenes sometimes though? Like when they're on the boat and they're talking. To me, have you ever seen improv games where they do freeze? And it's like, okay, your character is this and your character is this. Do a little improv and then freeze, and then okay, now your character is horny or whatever. Right? It's like watching that, but in one scene with no stop. So it's like we're having normal dialogue. Okay, horny now. Okay, stop. Keep talking.
I almost feel like the kiss is what you're talking about, where they escape from the gunfight, and then.
But
and
I
then,
think all of the love scenes are like
and
that.
then she just jumps, and they're having this conversation. Then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, she just kisses him for no reason, and he's like, "Wait until you ask permission." I swear to God, you know what it was? They wanted a button at the end of the movie that they could come back to, and they were like, "Well, wait, then we have to have him kiss earlier. Where can we have him kiss?" And they just found that scene, and they were like, "You know what? Just throw it at the end of this scene after this dialogue. Just have her kiss him."
Right.
And
And,
it-
then
and it
they're in
seems that out of
several more
place.
scenes together, and it's really awkward as to whether or not that kiss or like what happened after that. Was there sex? Was there not? Was it just a kiss? Did
It
they
seems
talk
totally
about
out
the
of
fact
place.
that they kissed at any point? What's going
Yeah.
on with that?
I agree. I do think that was wedged in by somebody trying to make the button at the end work as a callback, so they just threw it in there where it didn't work. And I think I think a lot of the romantic aspects are in this movie are sort of an afterthought to the main plot, which I think is much better.
And also realizing that they were saying we're not going to show them in bed together having sex. No scene will have that. No
Also,
scene
they
has
knew-
that, and it's because of the AIDS crisis, and we didn't get to find that out till I think it was a 2007 interview. Is what
Also,
I
they
read.
knew they could never top the boat sex scene from was it Never Say Never Again with Connery.
I'm back, baby.
Austin Powers scene, yeah.
All right, let's talk about the song. What do you guys think?
It's really good.
License
I didn't
to
remember
Kill.
liking it a lot, but playing it, we played it today, and I watched it earlier, and I played it before that when I was listening to it with Tim before he made the beat, and I was like, I am digging this.
I don't know if it's because it's like burned into my subconscious from like hearing it like maybe on the radio or in like department store, like a department store, like as a kid, but it really conjures like a late 80s vibe for me.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if it's the instrumentation or
Did
like,
you have Dillards?
No.
Oh. Did you have Dillard's?
No.
Oh, it's a department store. It's kind of like JCPenney, but it's
I
different.
had JCPenney, Sears.
Then what's Montgomery Ward's? I thought Montgomery Ward's was
Montgomery
like JCPenney, but-
Ward's is like
or Caldor's. We had Caldor's.
We had
Montgomery
Caldor.
Ward's is like more towards the Sears side of department stores.
So they have like
We had Montgomery Ward's, and I remember them having one huge room. I mean, it's all one big room, but one huge section of the room was just a bunch of different recliners, all the different lazy boys you could think of. That's what I remember from Montgomery Ward's. And
Fascinating.
stereos.
sounds like a magical place and stereo.
What a childhood! What a childhood you had! What an amazing adventure! What a life you've led!
No, I remember. A really early memory for me is getting the Deanna Troi action figure from from Star Trek: The Next Generation and going to Montgomery Ward's on the same day, and I was like, "This is a good day."
I feel like what's the actress's name who played her?
Mira Sortis.
I feel like she could have played the role of the girl in this movie. She's like
Which
of,
one?
Pam Bouvier. I feel like she's of the same
Interesting.
like body type and look and hair color. And...
No, you're thinking of Tasha Yar. You're thinking of the other. There's more than
Yeah.
one woman in.
Oh, you're right. I am
There's
thinking
actually
of
like
Tasha
at
Yar.
least 3 of them in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
3 women.
There's Dr. Crusher.
Not Crusher.
No, there's Tasha Yar, who's the one you're
That's
thinking
she has
of.
short hair.
That
and
is
there's
who I was
Deanna
thinking of.
Troi, who has empathic abilities,
Oh,
so
that's
she can
right.
feel your
Yeah, yeah,
feelings,
yeah. I
and
got
she
them
has
mixed
light
up.
telepathy
Right.
that can
Oh
be
my God!
enhanced.
I think we accidentally just became a Star Trek: The Next Generation podcast. I'm gonna pull the ripcord on this one. Yeah, we got a theme song by Gladys Knight, which you know what? I actually when I just first heard this, and I think I even told one of you guys like, hey, yeah, it was kind of boring. It's it didn't really do much for me. And then I think because that was like the day after I heard it, and then it was stuck in my head all day, and it's been stuck in my head for 2 weeks now. It is a kind of a hooky song, and it's got that weird, like what you're talking about, I think, is that like sort of 80s soul, a little overproduced, a little too much synth,
Yep.
but still like a really good singer just nailing a song.
Yeah.
And it was really, I agree. It's
That
kind of
style was so popular.
it's secret low key, really good.
The tempo too, it's just kind of hangs with you. It's very groovy.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
notes, you know what they're from.
Yep.
We talked about it before the show.
Yeah, so they used the riff from Goldfinger.
Goldfinger.
That's right. And also there is just jumping ahead a little bit here. There's another original song in this movie over the end credits.
Also memorable.
If You Ask Me To, by If You
Patti
Ask Me
LaBelle?
To, by Patti LaBelle, another soul diva.
But it
which
was
later
remade-
covered by Celine Dion, which
Yes.
was the more famous version. So you've got 2 famous soul singers in one movie, which is a pretty good haul for a Bond movie.
I almost was going to see if Tim wanted to remix
Do one of
that
that,
song.
yeah,
and then
that
so we had the one in the front
Yeah.
and the one in the back of the show. But oh well.
Next time.
Next time.
And the video, the opening title sequence is designed for the last time
By Maurice
by Maurice
Binder.
Binder, who had done every single one except for From Russia with Love and Goldeneye.
No,
not Goldeneye, Goldfinger. He had done every single opening title sequence, and this is his last one. He would have done the next one, except he died and was therefore disqualified from doing it.
They
RIP.
tried to get him to do it still, but he was non-responsive.
Yeah. Just wouldn't return their calls.
Please, Mo.
This one's not too memorable for me. I'm sitting here struggling to think of the visuals.
It had stuff with the camera and the Asian woman who appears later for like a second.
The Oriental woman, you mean?
Yeah, they call them Orientals in this movie. Very.
I wasn't gonna say that.
I
though.
cringed every single time. It was kind of awful.
Yeah, which is 2 things that are really small elements that come in at least an hour away from the titles, but whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was the same. It was basically the same shit. It's naked lady silhouettes, and
They're getting more and more liberal with the nudity
Oh,
too.
there's.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually wanted to know, like, what is the rule for showing nipples in a? This movie's PG-13 for violence.
Yeah.
But like, they're really pushing it with some of these vaguely kind of shadowy women who are clearly naked, who you can see the
yeah.
nipples, and then there's a woman with like the see-through top on, where like you can just see like it's like sheer mesh.
I thought there were no official rules. There's just like the guys from the MPAA like deciding stuff.
Like those are classy nipples. These don't count. You know,
It's
like,
just like-
those. I mean, this was an era where in the '80s, you could actually have full nude. You know, there's like She's One of the Guys, and I think Trading Places, and a couple other movies that were not rated R that had actual
Trading
nudity
Places.
in them. So that apparently was okay, but actually Trading Places might be R. I don't remember.
I think it is. Yeah.
But anyways, that you could have that kind of thing you could have nudity in a movie as long as it was like the F
Titanic
word
is like that too.
It was like the F word is now. It's like if it's a one-time
Titanic.
thing, you can have it, but not otherwise. But now it's pretty much if you show a boob in a movie, you got an R rating. Interestingly enough, opening titles were taken over the very next year by Daniel Kleinman, who was a former punk rocker turned music video director. And the reason he got this gig was because he actually directed the video for Gladys Knight's version of License to Kill. And they were
No
like,
shit.
oh, shit, this guy's pretty good. And he has done almost everyone since then. Quantum of Solace is the only one he didn't do.
There's one part where it's like a gun on the screen, and then a woman runs from left to right, and she jumps up in the air, and the gun shoots at the same time. And then when she jumps up into the air, she turns into like a blur of color, and then it just happens over and over again, and the gun shoots, and then the woman jumps and color blurs and like flies, and I like that part.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Yeah, me too.
Very
I'm
vivid
going right
description.
there.
Yeah, and I like it. Very good. Oh my God. Are we ready to do the plot summary here?
I hope so.
We cue up the the very intense theme music.
All right, here we go.
You ready for this, Colin?
I hope so. Okay, so they caught Sanchez in the cold open, and then Sanchez is like, "I'll give you $2 million, get me out of here." And the DEA guy's like, "I won't do that," and then he does it. So he drives off a bridge, and they get Sanchez out with scuba guys, and they get out of there, and he tries to give him the $2 million. And then he goes and gets Felix because he's mad at him, and then he dumps him in some shark, and the shark eats his leg, and he kills Felix's wife. Bond finds out at the airport when he's about to leave, and he is pissed, as he should be. He goes back, he's trying to investigate. He looks all around. He finds the warehouse where they put the chompers on Felix's leg there. And he starts investigating. He finds cocaine. He's like, this is bad. So then he investigates that guy, and it's a guy with a boat and a submarine, and he's doing a trade. And then Bond just screws the whole deal. He destroys the drugs, keeps the money, and showers it over the ocean. Then he goes and finds this woman who was the CIA informant, and they team up, and then there's like a bar fight, which is really weird, and then they speed away on a boat. Then they're teaming up, and they're going after Sanchez. So they go to where Sanchez is, and he just starts throwing money around, and he gets Sanchez's attention, and he says, like, "I'm a British agent, but I used to be, but you could hire me because I'm a killer." And then Sanchez is like, "Okay, I'll trust this guy." And then he's like, "Oh, this other guy with the boat, he's no good." So him and the girl, they make Sanchez turn on his guy, and then they end up, going to. Bond also romances the other woman, the Sanchez's girlfriend, and then they end up going to the hideout where Sanchez is trying to, get in with the Asians and sell them the drugs and make franchises, and then everything blows up.
All right.
All right, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the lovely ladies of this movie.
Yeah. Let's talk about Della first because she's easy to get out of the way quick because she gets out of the way quick.
Yeah.
Della,
She's a bubbly character.
yeah. She's Felix's lovely wife who seems to have a good
Kisses
relationship
Bond
with
on
James
the
Bond.
mouth like four
On the
times.
mouth.
4
Yeah.
times, yeah.
Yep. Very into JB.
Makes a point to give him the garter, and then
And is
somehow
trying to get him married, but I feel like she's trying to get him married in that way that like a wife might try to get her husband's single friends married just so they're like not dragging him out to the strip club all the time or whatever. It's like just he needs to settle down. You guys are getting older and
maybe, but it was also like, okay, she's doing that, and then she knows him really well, really seems to like him, but doesn't realize that he was married once and they killed her.
Yeah, I feel like this is a backstory that I invented, but I feel like Della was somebody that Bond met first, and probably like gave her the.
I feel like the performances go with that.
Gave her the old 007.5, and then was like, hey, you should meet my friend Felix. He's really much more your speed.
Yeah. Because that would make more sense as to why it's like so crucial that Bond is at Felix's wedding. I know Felix is like Bond's main friend in the world, but I mean,
Is that ever established though? I mean, I know they're like
well, everyone else gets killed.
they work together. They occasionally.
They are frequent coworkers.
They're
right, but everyone
best
else,
friends?
everyone else, he's friend. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Well,
Are
they've
they?
saved each other's lives. I just wonder how much because we only see Bond when he's off on missions. But is he just always off on missions? Does he have an
Right.
apartment that he's just never at?
And do they
therefore-
correspond? Is he sending him letters? Like, Felix, I almost got murdered again this time. You should have seen it.
If they're all off on missions, that probably means that Bond might know Felix better than he might know somebody that he's that lives in London or something. I don't know.
That's true.
All right, that's enough about Della. What else is there to say?
She is the actress is named Priscilla Barnes. You might remember her as the psychic with 3 nipples from Mallrats.
Oh no shit.
And of course,
Wow.
she was in Three's Company. She replaced Suzanne Summers and was not popular in that regard. Although I'm sure she did a fine job. Most interesting thing about her, apparently she wanted to be a dancer, and her dancing career ended when she broke her leg and jaw during a performance at the Hollywood Bowl. I don't even know what kind of dancing you have to do to break your leg and jaw, but it sounds awful.
What's
Could
that?
not find
Did she
more
go
detail.
into the orchestra pit or something?
I guess that must be it.
What's that dance fighting called?
Yeah,
Capoeira?
Capoeira. Yeah, maybe it was that.
Yeah, that must be it. She's a Brazilian dance fighter. When she said when it,
At
when
the
it
Hollywood
said
Bowl.
dancer, she meant a Brazilian dance fighter. At the Hollywood
It was to
Bowl.
the tune of John Williams music.
I lost my jaw at Hollywood Bowl.
All right, then we have
about Lupe?
the lovely Pam Bouvier, played by Carrie Lowell.
Oh yeah,
She was
best
good.
known for Law and Order, ADA
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Ross.
She was married
so-
several times. She had a kid with
Griffin Dunn.
Yeah.
And then she dated Richard Gere for many, many years, and then married him and was married for 11 years.
Oh,
and
really?
They only they were
they
together
just
for,
divorced like 2 years
and
ago.
it was
3 years ago.
acrimonious apparently. But
Yeah.
they were together for they were married for 11 years, but they had been together for a long time before that. So
Richard Gere.
yep.
I did not think we would talk about Richard Gere today.
Here we are
Yep.
talking about Richard Gere.
And both she and Talisa Soto, who played Lupe, refused to pose for Playboy, which is only significant in that so many other Bond girls
Did.
That was sort of the route. Is they were both
Right.
models. You became a model, then you became an actress, then you did a Bond movie, then you posed for Playboy, and that's how you became famous. And they opted not to, and that's sort of
Well, sometimes they were Playboy models before they were Bond girls, right?
that's true. The order is always a little bit fuzzy, but generally it's model, actress, Playboy, Bond in some order.
Right. But actress is never first.
What'd you guys think of her in this role? Pam Bouvier.
I thought she was decent, but I couldn't get over the lack of chemistry with her
Yeah.
and Bond. I mean, I thought she was very attractive. I think she
Very
seemed like a
attractive.
good actress, but I did not feel like they.
What'd you think of her haircut midway through?
Oh, I loved it.
Did you both just say you loved it at the same time?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought it was
Yeah,
good.
I love it. I love that it's like, your typical like boy haircut, but it's got that one like thing with the bangs that has like that like slime wave of gel.
Slime wave.
Yeah, exactly. I had this exact same haircut when I was like 8.
Yeah.
Give me the slime wave.
Not because of this movie, but just coincidentally. This
She
was
had a
like,
bit of a Zool look.
Yeah.
Well, this was the era for that. What's the name of the posters that everyone had up? I am blanking on the name. I'll think of it. But anyways, there was some famous posters in the 80s of like women with really short haircuts, and this was sort of a style. And this is one of the things I remember, like 3 things about the trailer for this, and one of them was her haircut and her pulling the tiny gun out of her garter in the elevator, and that like slick haircut. So
I think, a notable scene is I guess it's a swimsuit that she wears when they sneak into the boat together.
Oh yeah.
yeah, it looks like a slip.
It's like skin color, right?
Yeah, and then like no one mentions it, and Bond just does a look over she changes out of a jumpsuit and she's wearing that, and it's like, okay, I guess the audience, I'm assuming, is like, okay, I guess this is a bathing suit, question marks. And Bond looks over and just like gives her an eye.
You know the
scene
eye.
continues.
Yeah, no comment necessary.
Yeah, I thought she was good. I didn't think her acting was the best at times, but for the most part, leaps and bounds better than a lot of other Bond girls before her.
Especially good girls. That's always a tough role.
Yeah.
And she was like a little tough and
Yep.
a
This is
little
one of the-
smart.
Held her own. Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
times I think the good girl was better than the bad girl, or at least more interesting.
More interesting.
Oh,
for
and
sure.
she was a better actress. Talisa Soto, I had no idea what she was going for there.
Yeah.
Speaking of celebrity marriages, still married to Benjamin Bratt.
Yep.
And also, her first husband was Costas Mandylor, who, yeah, I know, you're both
made
giving me
that
a
name
look.
up.
Yeah, I know. It's such a fantastic name, though. He was famous for playing one of the deputies on Picket Fences, which is also a show that you probably, but Kathy Baker and Tom Skerritt.
Yeah, Harris, we're sure Costas Mandylor really exists.
Sounds like a Bond villain. If you
Next
ask
time
me.
I'm going to slip in a fake name and just see if anybody catches it.
Me and I'll be like, yeah, good thoughts.
But the highlight of her career was, of course, as you've already said,
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
She's not the only Mortal Kombat character in this movie, though. There's another one.
Gary
later on.
Tagawa.
Yep. Shang Tsung.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I've met Gary Tagawa.
Oh, you worked on
Yeah, I worked
Carrie's
on a
movie?
Yeah, I worked on a film,
yeah,
a
that's
short
right.
film that he was in, and I was his driver, his personal driver for driving him on and off set.
Did he at any point morph into someone else?
Because he has that ability.
Yeah, Shang Tsung.
There were no special
I
effects.
had
in
to
Mortal
watch
Kombat.
The Road, but I'm assuming he, of course, did.
What was that movie
I
called?
thought he was
Genghis,
cool.
Genghis Khan Conquers the Moon, right?
Yeah, Genghis Khan.
Yeah, I like
Conquers
that.
the
That
Moon.
was
We're going
good.
to shamelessly
I have a
plug
c-
our friend's movie.
Yeah, well, I have like a couple little anecdotes from meeting him. I liked him.
Is that the anecdote?
That's
Is that
the
anecdote?
anecdote.
That's number one. Anecdote
He
number
was
one.
nice.
That is the
Got it.
first one. No, I felt like I had to drive him around, and I felt appreciated at least slightly. So it was a pretty good interaction.
Wait. When you drove him and like didn't crash into anything, upon arrival, did he say flawless victory?
This is like your Uber driver training. That's
Yeah, it kind of was like that.
Or wait, when you were like, you know how sometimes homeless people in LA just like walk into the middle of the street when there's not an intersection?
We were in the desert.
Did
but
you
yes.
stop and then he looked you dead in the eyes and he said, finish him. And you would just drive him over.
No, but he does carry around a lot of photographs to sign for people that say "Your soul is mine."
Oh
on them.
my God.
Nice.
He does. He actually has that.
That's
I
a
had
good
one, but I
anecdote.
misplaced it.
Oh my God.
So I felt bad about that.
How do you
But,
misplace something that's framed and hanging on your wall all the time?
Well, he gave it to me in the car.
Right
and then
next
I
to your
put it in the
pictures
car,
of
and I'm
Moneypenny.
like-
No, the pictures of Moneypenny are on the ceiling.
Let me get to my Carrie Tagawa stories. So,
Oh God, those weren't it.
This podcast is going to be 4 hours long.
so one of the funnest parts of working on that is there's a scene where he cuts a guy's head off, and he looks in the head. He holds up the head, which is like a costume head, and he looks it in the eyes, and he says something to it, and then he tosses the head. And just off screen, you know who had like a little pillow and was catching the decapitated head time and time again?
Was it you?
It was me. I was catching decapitated heads for Shang Tsung when you were.
Did you ever drop it?
No,
Oh, nice.
it couldn't get the desert dust on it because it was expensive.
Oh, good.
They were like, "Don't let it touch the ground. Catch the head."
Sacrifice
I
your
feel
body.
like there's a joke here about getting head on a movie set.
I feel like that might have been it.
The other funny thing about him was after he learned that I was from Texas, he expressed like a weird fascination with Waco and David Koresh, and I thought that was
Another cult
hilarious. Right? He was like, "Oh yeah, Waco. Yeah, that was crazy."
Well,
And I was like, "Why do you want to talk about this?"
That might be the only thing he knows. Like that might be the only significant thing in
Right.
Texas that's ever sort of.
Right? Yeah. But
Made the news
also
cycle.
really funny that happened. And
Well, it's like
Yeah.
that, and now it's like home makeover shows.
He took
Take
one
place in
look at
makeup.
you. He was like, "This guy knows a thing or two about David Koresh. I could tell. He's got that vibe. He's got the Koreshi vibe.
You
that-
do have a David Koresh kind of vibe, Colin.
Yeah. He's got so
I
I'm
don't
getting
know
a
if
real,
I'm
I'm getting a real
comfortable with
Branch
finding that
Davidian
out
thing
here.
coming off of you, Colin. What's going on with that?
I hope that's not what he was saying. I thought we were friends.
He was just hoping to get recruited. He was like, "So you doing like a Branch Davidian 2 thing? Is that?"
It's like, I don't know what's going on in my life right now. I could sure use some cult bullshit.
All right, that's enough about the girls. Let's talk about the villains. There's a lot of them.
It's a good time to mention there are a shit ton of henchmen in this movie.
Can you
Just
name
a
them all?
record. Sure.
Without looking at IMDb.
Oh, well, that's much harder. I can name all the actors because I wrote those down.
I wrote at least 5 of the actors on the board.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got Kilifer the dirty cop. We've got Dario the right hand man. We got Lupe Lamora the bad girl. We got Crest the legitimate business front. We've got Heller the head of security. We got Truman Lodge the nerdy planner guy, and we got Professor Joe Butcher the other legitimate business front. Is that enough henchmen for you?
Yeah, I think that's all of them.
That is enough. That is
Wade
quite-
Newton is really good as Professor Joe Butcher, and we just don't get enough of it.
Let's
He's
talk
in
about,
like 2 scenes.
Let's
right?
talk about Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton got this part because he always wanted to be in a Bond movie, and he just happened to mention it to Cubby Broccoli, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, we could do that."
Yeah.
They threw him in the movie. He is pretty remarkable. I can't get over. First of all, his hair is amazing.
Including the mustache?
Yeah, everything, but the hair on the top of his head especially, because he's like a natural blonde, and somehow he has this signature jet black pompadour that never moves, and like he's got mostly in the movies. He's in a few significant roles in different movies. He usually is playing himself. This is one of the rare times when he's playing somebody else. Obviously, we could talk about Vegas Vacation. I could do a whole podcast on Vegas
Yeah,
Vacation.
I knew we were going to get to talk about Vegas Vacation. Me and Harris have talked about Vegas Vacation before, and it's always great when you like an obscure movie that some people say is not that good, and then someone else you know also likes it.
It's amazing. It is an amazing film, and I feel like it's made me a Waniac.
Maniac.
Yeah, she has a dress in it that says Waniac across her boobs.
It is amazing. But you know, the funniest thing about him is that he does these, like he'll do an appearance, like this is a guy who actually threatened to fight Johnny Carson because he was making too many jokes about his high-pitched voice, which I'm also always amazed that he's got such a deep speaking voice. Because are you familiar with him singing? Like, have you guys
Doesn't he
heard?
do a version of Loving You?
He does this. Well,
Or
he
is
does
it
a song called.
Loving
His famous
You?
song is called Donkashane. I'm gonna play. It
I
for
know
you right-
Donkashane,
I'm gonna
yeah.
play it for you right now. But have you heard him sing it? Like not live.
Donkashane?
Like yeah, because that's like a crooner style.
I love that this podcast has come to this.
This
It's
is
all
what
about
for.
the tangents.
Yeah, that's him.
Seriously, it only gets hot. It only gets higher from here. It goes up every single verse. He goes up a little bit.
I don't think I ever knew that this was him.
I mean, we
That's
could
not the
listen
way
to
he
that for a
sings.
while,
That's
but-
not the way he sings it in Vegas Vacation, though. He goes a
No,
little
because
lower.
I think as he got older, his voice got a little lower.
Yeah, it sounds like he's 16 in that.
But
Yeah.
this is a man who threatened to beat up Johnny Carson for making fun of his high voice, and yet will be in Vegas Vacation, and also in this movie, kind of playing like a vague parody of himself as sort of this like it's like he's sort of just self-aware enough that he can get the joke and be in on it a little bit. But
Right.
it's really fascinating.
In this one, he's just like a sleazy guy.
yes.
In Vegas Vacation,
But he's a sleazy guy who is
He's
dressed.
playing himself.
He's a sleazy guy who's dressed and basically has the mannerisms of Wayne Newton. You know, it's like so it's like he must kind of realize that.
but we're also talking about a guy who did what, like 4 shows a week for years, for 10
yeah.
plus years or something like that.
Yep, he is a worker.
Do you guys know the actor who played Truman Lodge? Like who else he is? What
is
he's known
Is
for?
he from Seinfeld?
He is from
Yes, he
Seinfeld.
is. Jimmy's down. The guy who refers to himself as
In the
the
third
third person, the Jimmy. It's the Jimmy episode.
He's literally known for that and this movie. And
Yeah.
like that's basically it.
Amazing.
Oh wow, there's so many people.
Mario.
Everett
Sharky.
McGill, who plays Kilifer, the treacherous DEA agent, is the only other thing I know him for. Is he had a really big role in Twin Peaks. and
Sure.
yeah, and that's like nothing else.
The guy who plays Sharky is the chief of police in Last Action Hero.
And one of the Lethal Weapons.
He's a former NFL player and has pretty good action movie credentials. Just
Yeah.
randomly shows up in a lot of things.
And then we've already talked about Robert Davi, who
but
was
we
one
haven't
of
really
the
gone
Johnsons
into Robert Davi too much.
in Die Hard. They have the other Johnson from Die Hard in
Playing
this
the
movie.
DEA
Did you
agent,
notice that? Yeah.
Yep. And of course, Robert Davi, probably best known for The Goonies, if not Die Hard.
Something
and
else too. The Goonies and
Die Hard and this. That's all I got.
maybe that is it.
but
He's
yeah.
also a staunch Republican, conservative.
And
He's a
wanted-
Trump,
real life?
Trump
and
supporter.
Wanted
Yeah.
to be an
I
opera
did not
singer
know
when he
any
was
of
young.
that.
Yep. What'd you say?
Wanted to be an opera singer when he was young.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Seems to. I think in a lot of these movies he plays Hispanics, even though he's Italian.
I thought he was Hispanic.
Yep.
We already said his character was modeled after
Pablo Escobar.
Pablo Escobar, but his character is also very much Manuel Noriega.
Noriega. Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually had said that when he was playing that part, he tried to play the character as a alternate universe James Bond, like in his own. Which, if you look at the performance in that regard, it actually really is interesting in that he has that like sort of suave sophistication, and or at least he's aspiring to that, and he's got that kind of charm and charisma. But he doesn't have any of the empathy or any he's like the bad guy version of James Bond, which I think are some of the best Bond villains. If you look through the whole series, I think the closer they are to just the anti-James Bond.
Well, that's like the more and more becoming like a popular trend with villains. Even in like the Marvel movies, they do that, where like the main villain of whatever superhero is always their the evil version of themselves. They did it in Iron Man,
like Iron Man and Woodman.
We're not so different, you and I.
I wanted to come up with more, but I couldn't. Black Panther and White Panther.
Ant-Man and Shoe Man.
Ant-Man versus Magnifying Glass Man.
God.
Yeah.
All right. Who else?
We also got Crest, who is the
owner of the
business-
Wave Crest.
Yeah, of the Wave Crest, who is like this strangely familiar looking actor who was in Omega Man and The Dead Zone and Cool Hand Luke and all these other movies. But I swear to God, I would not know. If you walked in the room and emptied the garbage can right now, I would not recognize him.
Remember me?
He's got a lazy eye, but that's all I.
Yeah, he keeps doing a weird bug eye thing.
I think he had a glass eye or something because that one eye just didn't move.
Yeah, and then his death is so nasty.
Wait, before
Oh,
we
yeah.
get into that, I want to do a whole section on the deaths in this movie because they are outstanding.
Should we go to that next? Are we done?
Let's just do it.
Oh,
yeah.
we didn't talk about
Wait.
Benicio del Toro though.
Oh, yeah.
I really got. I am
Like
really
20-year-old Benicio del Toro.
a 21-year-old Benicio del Toro, the youngest Bond henchman ever, and he looks like he's about 12, and he is so young and pretty. And by 1995, he's in The Usual Suspects. That's 6 years later. He's in The Usual Suspects, and he looks much more like the Benicio del Toro we know now.
Yeah.
He's haggard and hangdog, but he's only 27 years old in that movie. He's aging in dog years. He's not even 30 when he does Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I mean, what is going on with this guy? And then thank God his accelerated aging stopped there because he would be like he would look like one of the guys from the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
he
chose poorly.
Yeah, exactly.
He went from 21 to 40 in a day, and then he just stayed there.
Then he just stayed there for another 20 years.
yeah, 20 years.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely amazing. And yeah, I remember when Excess Baggage came out. That's that deep cut Alicia Silverstone. Yeah, 1997. I remember thinking,
What?
why is this? How could they cast? Like, I like Benicio del Toro, but why would they cast this old guy in this movie about a girl in her early 20s? He was like 28 or something like that.
What movie is this? Because I want to see it.
It was like, I remember seeing the trailer for it. I think when I went to see Batman and Robin
Yeah,
in the theater. 'cause
I've
Alicia
actually seen the
Silverstone
movie.
was,
Yeah.
like,
Alicia
gonna be a star.
Silverstone plays a rich girl who,
I
who
remember
stages,
that.
She
I had
stages
a
her own
huge crush on
kidnapping.
her in that
I think we
year.
all did.
That
and
year
then
was like
he accidentally kidnaps her. She stages her own kidnapping.
accidentally kidnapped
Yeah,
her?
she stages her own kidnapping, and then he steals the car that she's staging her kidnapping in, and accidentally kidnaps her, and then they end up falling in love. It's not as bad as it sounds, oddly.
But
I'm-
Batman and
I'm
Robin
interested.
killed her career faster than you can say
Batman and
excess
Robin
Batman
was
and
an
Robin
important
killed her
movie
career.
because it teaches us that you always need to have a rocket sled just in case the whole city freezes.
Right.
Which
And
I have,
skates.
which we all have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, was that the one where they put nipples in the suits? Because that was a big issue too. Is the nipples were chafing without the nipple?
I think
on
they
the exterior
started
of
the
suits,
nipples
so.
in the suits the year before, but I'm not. No. It was that year because it's a Clooney thing. Clooney always talks about the nipples on the suit.
That's one of the things that Marvel got right. Is that they just had the actors wear little nipple pads underneath. So that was a big innovation. And part of the reason they succeeded where so many other things have failed.
I feel like you guys are a little frustrated with how we haven't talked that much about License to Kill, and we've talked about a lot of other things, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's all about the tangents for me. If you're listening, I'm sorry. And you're welcome. I made a list here of all the brutal deaths and violence in this movie. I'm just going to run through it quick. You guys let me know if I forgot any. I have Felix Leiter's wife is raped and killed. They
yes,
kinda-
that's the implication.
That's the implication, yeah.
I did not know that.
The eating of Felix's leg via shark.
He doesn't die, only his leg does.
Right. Sharky being hung up like a shark, dead. We don't see his death on screen.
But there's
He
blood.
got
on him.
harpooned.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, there's a harpoon through him when he's hanging upside
Oh,
down.
I didn't catch
I
that.
didn't catch that
It's
either.
nasty.
Bond harpooning a frogman in retaliation.
That is
Bond
one of my
also threw the case of money on the guy and knocked him into the shark pit, and he got eviscerated by the shark.
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Oh.
You keep
Can I
interrupting me.
pause on the henchman who gets killed by Bond in revenge for Sharky for just a second? Because I think that is hilarious. First of all, I don't know why the spear gun, when it shoots him, makes a spark when it hits him.
I saw that.
What is going on with that? I feel like that happens a lot in Bond movies. But anyways, the spear gun makes a spark. But also,
He was made of metal.
I wish I could have ripped it just so I could show it to you, that actor's performance, because I really want to appreciate it. Because he's this fat henchman who they kill Sharky, and he's like, his name was Sharky, you believe that shit? And like, as he's getting out of the boat, this is like the joke he makes. And then he's just like, he loves his work. He is so happy with everything that's gone down today. And he gets a real kick out of Sharky's name being Sharky. And then he's like patting himself in the back, and then he walks around the corner with this big dumb smile on his face.
And gets
like, job well
murdered.
done. And Bond shoots him. And it's like just one of those things that, like, he's got like an Instagram page full of like #hench for life stuff, and people are like,
Hench for life.
dude, don't put that out there quite so much. But it's just, he's all about it.
I just love killing, man.
I just
love it.
love being a henchman.
All right, let's
This
see.
one's for Sharky.
I got a few more here. Bond harpooning the frogman. Crest exploding in a decompression chamber. Dario being fed to the grinder. Heller getting impaled by a forklift. Killifer eaten by a
was that?
shark. Truman Lodge getting machine gunned. The Asian agents or Oriental agents getting machine gunned down. Shang Tsung taking a cyanide pill. Sanchez being immolated in a gasoline fire. Guys being thrown out of an airplane. And that's all I got. I feel like I missed something.
It got pretty nasty.
There was lots of machine gunning, but
Yeah, the scene where they kill all the Hong Kong agents, the building kills that one guy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it like breaks him in half.
And
And
then
then
they
the
machine gun the
woman,
girl to death.
her whole chest, they must have put like
squibs all over the
five
She gets
big
shot up, right?
squibs on her that just busted her
that
chest
explode,
open.
and then seconds later she hurls herself backwards as if she's been shot.
Yeah.
It was not great timing on that one.
Yeah, some of the action does not work.
The fight scenes are
how are
all
you gonna jump
terrible.
off a boat? There's 50 people looking for you. You just swim around underwater. You come back. You fuck something up. You go back underwater. They're still looking for you. You jump on an airplane. You destroy that. Come on.
Come on.
So are we going to take a vote on the most brutal of all the brutal deaths?
Yeah, what was the most cringeworthy?
I think the decompression chamber. It disturbed me.
That was the most graphic because you see his head expanding and then you see the blood explode on the thing. But
Right before they do that, they show the angle from his point of view almost, where you're like looking at Robert Davi through the glass. I thought it would have been effective to just see blood like hit
but
from
they
that end.
show it.
But they actually show it. Yeah.
And they cut some of it.
Yeah, because they had to get
That's in
because they
the
had
trivia.
a worse rating and they had to cut. So I imagine they just cut
That scene
frames
is
out
cut
of the head
down because it
expanding.
was nastier than that.
What I think they did was I think they cut to the blood exploding onto the I think they cut frames out between the head expanding and the blood exploding onto the
Well,
window.
there's some version where it's uncut. It was like the American DVD version or something. It said it
Perhaps.
Did you notice that the dubbing is all really bad?
Yeah,
for
it's-
who?
All of it.
Well, I think the
There's
Amazon,
a lot of-
I
it's
think
like-
the Amazon Prime sync is a little off.
You think that's what it was?
Yeah, I think it was like
I
Because
didn't
I watched
notice
it on
anything.
that. Did you watch it on your DVD?
I know I watched it on Hulu.
Hulu.
Amazon Prime. One of
Amazon
those.
Prime. That's
No,
where
actually, it was Hulu. I watched it on Hulu.
Oh, then
yeah.
maybe the Hulu one's okay, and the Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
one's
the
a little
Amazon
off.
Prime one is like
I felt like it was a
kung
half a
fu
second
movie.
off. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
It's like their lips are moving and they're talking on a whole other thing.
I noticed that.
Interesting.
I'm cutting all this. But no, I think the runner-up, because I agree the decompression thing is the worst, but I think the runner-up would be Dario, just slowly getting mulched by the machine.
Yeah, that was
my
pretty
God.
gnarly.
Yeah, he's still holding on to Bond
Yeah,
for
exactly.
his
Well,
legs
are-
getting
and
mulched.
he's like screaming, and his legs are getting mulched.
So
It's
nasty.
very bad. The shark eating, as a kid, the shark eating scene scarred me, especially because like Felix is like a regular. He's not a Quirrell. He's a regular character, and I was like, oh my God, they're killing off Felix.
And it's the only time they've got the same actor to play Felix a second time.
Yeah, they didn't get the guy from the previous movie.
But here's the interesting bit of trivia. Here's the interesting bit of trivia on that. In the original books, Felix Leiter gets his arm eaten off by a shark in Live and Let Die. And that was the previous one that this actor played Felix in, and he managed to escape that fate there, but had to pay the piper in this one, lost a leg. But it's interesting because then they actually in the novels, because this became a novelization, which became canonical Bond books, and they actually had him get his leg eaten off by a shark in the novel when he already had a fake arm from getting eaten off in the shark earlier, and Bond even makes a joke about lightning striking twice. And then so like at some point in the novels, Felix Leiter has a fake arm and a fake leg because he got them both eaten off by sharks on separate occasions.
So now it bothers me. I don't like when continuity in a movie series is broken, and we know that Felix Leiter comes back in later movies. I guess there's something else that should bother me now that I think about it, but it bothers me that he has two legs.
When he's Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah,
Well, but
the whole skin color thing
and we'll
didn't hit me until right now.
we'll talk about it more then. But that was a soft reboot.
Right, that was my next
which
thing.
is sort
yeah.
of and of course we'll go over that, but I think they made a smart decision there to handle it that way because they didn't have to deal with these long-term continuity issues that come up.
And this was not one of the most popular ones.
Right, so we're just sweeping it under the rug here.
Just pretend like it and never speak of it again.
What else? What else do you guys want to talk about?
Well,
We kind of hit a lot. Let's talk about the action. Is that what you're going to say, Harris?
I was going to say, since we're speaking of killing, I do appreciate the gesture of killing Killifer with his own money, but I'm with Sharky on that one. That's a fucking waste.
A waste of money.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good lines in this, like not fully addressed line. Like, you know, the lines were just kind of subdued.
Yeah.
They weren't like blatant, like Roger Moore, like a close up of him saying a funny,
Like
witty
Timothy
line.
Dalton saying a farewell to arms at the Hemingway house.
Nice.
Yes.
You know. Emma's a real dick in this one.
Yeah, he
Like
is.
really, like even for him. It's not
club
It's
Oh,
not
let's-
like the playful banter. It's just he's an asshole.
Let's talk about the final scenes of M as well as this version of Moneypenny.
It felt like they threw it in there because they weren't making a Bond movie as much as they wanted to be.
Yeah, this movie feels very much not like a Bond movie.
Well, and part of that, and part of their scenes in particular, is interesting because they didn't shoot on the soundstage at all. They never shot any of this in England because they had changed the tax rules,
Right.
which meant that they had to pay. You know, they were getting gouged for working with any foreign artists. So they didn't. This is the first Bond movie that wasn't shot at all in England.
the first and only, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah, I
never
think
did
so.
it again. Yeah,
So I wonder where that little scene was shot.
in Florida,
in
at
Florida?
the actual. I think they actually shot at the Hemingway house, right? Like it's a real thing you can.
No,
go
I
to.
mean the one with Moneypenny.
wasn't.
Because it looked like they were emulating M's office.
Yeah, they were. It was. It was.
Oh, that scene.
supposed to
Oh.
look like M's
Although
office,
it definitely
yeah.
wasn't. There weren't a lot of wides there, so it was
I
basically
know
just
it
putting
could
up
be
a wall
anywhere.
by
I
a
wonder.
desk, yeah.
I wonder what. I wonder what it was in real life. You know.
Interesting. But yeah, Caroline Bliss, totally forgettable. Like I don't even remember
Really.
any lines that she had. Yeah.
She was wonderful. I could feel it. Like when she was talking about how she was still looking out for Bond, I could just feel it. You know.
I
was like,
think
she
at the end of
cares.
this podcast, we need to rank all the money pennies too.
From like each movie.
How many are there in total?
There's only
So far
4.
only-
4?
There's this
so far
one,
only
the
2, and
first
then
one,
there's-
and then there's
2 more.
Samantha Bond is her name, I think, and
Yeah,
then there's
I always hated that.
the new one,
Yeah.
and I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
But she's She's the witch in the Pirates
Pirates.
of the Caribbean movies.
And she's in 28 Days Later, too.
Yeah, she's very pretty.
Oh yeah, that's where she's from. Thank you. Can we talk about Bond dressed in manta ray cosplay? or is that furry? Can he be a furry if he's not having sex with somebody in the costume?
I think yes, if you're attracted to it.
Oh, so am I alone there?
Of course not.
I mean, we've had Bond dress up as animals to swim underwater before. This has happened. He's had a duck on his head. He's been an alligator.
I think with fewer extras, this whole sequence would be better because it's got some really cool action, but a bunch of it is cut with a bunch of guys shooting machine guns and hitting nothing.
And always in the water. Like you said earlier, he jumps off a boat and just disappears in the water, and then people are shooting guns in the water, and nothing's happening.
He
Then
must
they go-
have drowned.
they go
no,
after-
he didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Then they go after him with spear guns, and they've got spear guns, and he's still like swimming away from him, and they're not shooting him with the spear guns.
But I love what Bond does. He systematically takes out the whole thing. They are trading the drugs for money. So a seaplane comes down, and they put the money in the little submarine, and they take the drugs out. Or no, they take the money out of the submarine, put the drugs in. So he goes to the submarine. He chops up all the drugs while it's underwater, so it just becomes like a cloud of cocaine water. Then he goes back, evades them again, and hits the pontoon of the seaplane with the harpoon that's attached to a rope, and then just hangs on so he can just climb up on the plane as it flies away, and then dumps all the money out and kills those guys.
I wonder if I can copyright cocaine water, just in case they ever legalize it.
Well,
Cocaine
you got
water.
cocaine gasoline
You-
in
you
this
wanna
too.
be ahead of that.
You should copyright that too.
That must be based on a real thing, too.
The gasoline thing?
Putting cocaine in the gasoline in the...
I don't know.
It seems too crazy.
Sounds far-fetched.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time Bond played fast and loose with
It looks
science.
gross when it comes
Yeah.
back out of the gasoline. It doesn't look like powder cocaine.
It looks like
anymore.
sludge. It looks like...
It looks like slimy, silly
like
putty.
gack. You
Speaking
remember
of things that are
gack?
gross, let's talk about the roadhouse that they meet in and get into a massive bar fight in.
Bimini bar?
Yeah.
That seems so
I s-
stupid.
I say let's talk about gross because Bud Light with Bud with a lime, is that like, I was like, oh my God, Bond's not going to drink a Bud with a lime, is he? And then
No,
he
hell
didn't.
no.
He knocked him over. So I was like, thank God. That was a close one.
Yeah, let's talk about the drinks in this movie because there's another funny bit.
Well, he orders shaken, not stirred, but they make a big point about the shaken, not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred.
They do a whole hand gesture. She does
When she walks over to the bar, what country are they in? They're in fake Panama at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess she thinks that they won't understand her English when she's saying shaken, not stirred. So she's making huge, elaborate hand gestures of shaking a shaker,
Which looks like the
jerking
jerk-off motion.
and then
Yeah.
stirred, where she's staring at the guy, doing it with her.
Which
index
looks like a
finger.
butt play motion.
Yes. And it's a little strange.
It is a little strange.
Guys,
And
can I
then she
just tell
ends
you
up-
something? So
what?
I went to a bar just recently. And there was like a nice whiskey bar, and they had a couple of cocktails, and one of them was a Vesper, like the actual James Bond drink, which is pretty rare to find, and I'd never had one. So I ordered it, and the bartender said, "Do you want that shaken or stirred?" And I laughed. And then sat there for a second because I couldn't for the life of me remember. I was like, wait a minute. And then I was like, shaken?
I know I have an opinion on this.
Yeah. I felt so embarrassed. I was like, I really can't believe I couldn't think of that.
Got put on the spot.
When I was too young to drink, I was taught how to make the James Bond drink.
Oh my God.
Who stirs a martini? I've never even seen that happen.
It's for lazy people.
I guess. Or if you
Um,
don't have a, what's it called? Shaker.
He went on to tell me like the science of it. Like there's, if you like shake it, it does something different. Like stirring it,
Yeah.
it blends the flavors or something the wrong way, or I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a martini is either vodka or gin.
gin.
James Bond drinks vodka, which is kind of interesting because gin is a more common drink in the United
England.
Kingdom.
Yeah.
And basically, you put that and ice in a shaker and shake it really hard so it reaches the optimal temperature, and then you spray it with vermouth, which is like a sort of a wine. and then you'll either add one olive or a twist of lemon, which is like a piece of lemon peel, and you'll rub that around the rim, or you'll drop the olive in. A lot of people now order dirty martinis because they like the saltiness, which is just the juice from the olives poured into the same drink.
And then you put it all in a glass that makes it impossible to drink without spilling, which is why martinis are stupid. There, I said it.
They
I
are
like
delicious, though.
I like
They're
'em.
delicious. Pour them in a normal glass that drunk people can drink out of. Like, no actual drunks ever order martinis, because
think
how
that's-
would you ever drink it? You couldn't drink your second or third. You'd spill half of it in your lap.
I think that's part of the point, is like you're supposed to get to a level where when you're really drunk, you can hold this tiny little glass with 2 fingers and balance it.
And that's why only old people drink martinis, because it takes years of practice.
Exactly.
Seriously.
All right, let's talk about the action in this movie. We've already
right.
kind of talked about the
I want
boat.
to talk about that bar fight. I still want to get to it.
Oh, yeah, let's go. Let's,
Like once. So my question is, and my question to you guys, and I would like an answer to this: how many of those people in that bar are Sanchez's men? Because as soon as they start fighting, as soon as Pam and Bond start throwing punches with Dario and the other henchmen, all of a sudden, like, the first thing that happens is an old guy sitting at the table next to them turns around and tries to sock Bond in the face. And then, like, random, like, Branscombe Richmond, who is this random actor from some bad TV shows, shows up and starts punching guys. There's random people just punching people out of nowhere.
I thought it was that classic bar fight trope of like, if a bar fight starts, then everyone just
Girls in
starts
bikinis
fighting.
punching people. And
it's very Roadhouse.
it just seems like a bunch of, and Roadhouse also came out the same year. So I guess my other question is this an accurate depiction of bars in 1989? Like half strip club, half leather daddy fight club? It's like really
I think you might be onto something.
It's very, like, if that's what bars were in 1989, I'm glad I was too young. It doesn't
Agreed.
doesn't seem cool. Patrick Swayze's ripping people's throats out and just all hell's breaking loose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like when she takes the shotgun and shoots the wall, and it makes like a perfect circle. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
You could tell that they did that. Like, whoever pulled that wall away, like, was
Yeah.
really happy.
Oh, and the whole rowdy bar fight starts with her discharging a shotgun in a crowded bar, which nobody seems to acknowledge, especially not the girl who's table dancing nearby.
Hey,
and
it's
continues
Florida.
continues dancing.
Yeah, and using a shotgun in that small of a room, and she kills no one with it, right? Am I
No. She doesn't even. She can't even hit Benicio del Toro in the crotch, and it was literally inches away from the thing.
Right. She put it in his crotch, and she missed.
Yeah, she's not good with a shotgun.
All right.
Guess not.
When you guys want to talk about the finale, that's the other big action sequence.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
really it. There's like the
It's-
whole plane sequence. There's the bar
I mean,
fight.
we do get
and
like,
the
I think
end.
the other interesting thing along the way, it's not really an action sequence, but we do get like the sort of Yojimbo angle where he decides to turn the guys against each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the more clever Bond moments. Usually his thing is he sneaks around, he spies on guys until he gets captured and somebody explains their plan to him,
And then he escapes.
he calls for backup and shit blows
He
up.
pushes a button and
Yeah,
it blows the whole
exactly.
thing
He
out,
just
yeah.
pushes the button and it blows everything up. In this one, he actually does some clever like spy stuff where he pretends to be somebody he's not,
So
and
they
gains the
do a
guy's
good
trust.
job of early on setting up that Sanchez is all about loyalty.
Right.
And he's got all these guys around him, but he trusts them 100% because they are loyal to him.
What year did Scarface come out?
80, 81, something
84.
like that. 84?
84.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a Scarface vibe going on with that whole.
Yeah, well, Pablo Escobar was like in full swing when this movie came
Right.
out.
Yeah, and Noriega was also.
So yeah, you can see the influence all over the place. But yeah, so the loyalty is like big for him. So and they introduce that early on enough that it's like interesting that that's Bond's like plan is to basically get him to not trust anyone around him, and right down to the bitter end, he kills all his henchmen. Right, he kills
Except for Dario.
Yeah.
Except for Dario.
Yeah, he kills everyone else's head of security. He kills Truman Lodge. He kills Crest when Bond actually has to sneak onto Crest's boat to plant the money that he stole from Crest earlier. And Carrie Lowell has a harbor pilot accent that is supposed to be Spanish. Or
Yeah, what the
Russian,
hell
or
was
what-
that?
what
I don't
was
know. That
That
seems
was
really
bizarre.
weird.
It's like it started off as Spanish, and then it turns into Russian, and then I guess because the jig was up, she just went back to her normal
Yeah,
accent.
yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, when she runs the boat into the dock,
No one tries to stop her.
continues to be business as usual.
They do run it. They do play it that she's like super hot. Like they're all looking at each other like, Hey,
Right.
Hey.
Yeah.
She could crash my boat anytime.
I don't care what country she's from. Very questionable accent.
But it turns out the other guys, once the small fire starts and turns into exploding the
blaze.
entire
Oh yeah,
building.
well, let's spend a little more time on that because basically Bond is they're in this cocaine factory that they're infusing the gasoline with cocaine and they're going to drive it out in tanker trucks. And
And so wait, the Oriental.
contingent who they speak Japanese to. These guys are Chinese, first of all. It's very clear
Hong
that
Kong is China.
yeah, it's very clear that the Chinese, they're speaking Chinese, and all the other the Sanchez and his men, Truman Lodge, both say like arigato and shit to them. They're speaking to them in
That's fucked
Japanese.
up.
It is so.
What are they
and
there-
they're calling them the Orientals, which I don't think is supposed to be like them being clueless. I think it was just 1989. I don't know. That
That's
can't have
right.
Been,
That's
that
what
can't
they
have been.
call
They're still bad guys.
That can't have been right.
Were they I forget. Are they investing in the whole?
They were buying it for they're part of the Asian crime syndicate that is buying.
He was
these
selling them
shipments.
franchises in the operation.
Right. And they're going to ship these tankers of gasoline mixed with cocaine over. And he was actually going to send his own scientist over to unmix it. And he was showing them the lab, and they're all wearing masks because there's so much cocaine in the air. Now, by the end of the scene, nobody's wearing a mask. Not Dario, not Bond, not what's her name, Pam. And somehow they are not totally keyed up, although I guess it'd be hard to tell.
I'm sure there's a ton of gasoline
I was gonna
fumes
say,
going
it's
on.
more
There's
the
open
gasoline in the air.
gasoline
Yeah.
containers
There
everywhere.
are clouds of cocaine floating around this room. Clouds of cocaine. But anyways.
Both will mess you up.
Yeah. But Bond is wearing a mask, which is the only reason Dario doesn't recognize him at first, because they've actually had run-ins in the past.
In the bar fight.
And then they go into the lab, and Dario sees that it's him, and Bond's only way of escaping is to take this beaker full of flaming gasoline. It's a tiny beaker. It was like, what, like...
Well, doesn't one guy,
like
I
a
think
regular
Sanchez,
sized
like, makes a
beaker.
joke. He's like, and you could do this at the end, and he like lights the beaker on fire, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
then
it's a
that's when Bond takes it
flaming
and flings it.
beaker of
yeah.
gas, and Bond flings it across the room. It
Really
is
just
it is maybe a couple of
inappropriate.
tablespoons of gasoline, and it goes across the room.
It's less gasoline than would fit in a solo cup, I
Yeah.
would say.
And it explodes into a fireball, which destroys the
As it
secure lab room. But not only does it's not confined to the secure lab space, it somehow spreads to the entire facility. And this $32 million facility, Truman Lodge says, we spent $32 million in this place, which is also the budget of the movie. The secure $32 million facility goes up in flames because somebody spilled a tiny cup of gasoline.
Yeah.
Sanchez is like,
gasoline
"Never
that
mind
they were,
that."
gasoline that they were handling as if it's not flammable.
Right. And Sanchez is really unperturbed by this entire thing.
But how does that work? So the gasoline went into the corner of this little laboratory room, and something in the corner of that laboratory room made a much larger explosion. And then that explosion, I guess, went through the walls of the laboratory room
think
into
the windows
a
of the-
vital component of the entire operation of the entire
course.
building.
A bigger explosion blew out the windows, and I think
all
that's what they're
daisy
going for.
chained.
We don't really see the details. All we know is that all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, and in seconds, the henchmen are aware that the whole place is going down just because this beaker of gas has been spilled.
No, don't they say we have to try to stop it? And he says like,
Truman Lodge says we have to try to stop it. We spent $32 million in this
Yeah.
place, and Sanchez is like, "Screw it, we got the
Forget it."
tankers."
But doesn't the other guy say like the whole place is gonna go up or
right,
something?
the
right?
security guy goes, "We can get we've secured the tanker trucks, but I don't think we can stop or contain the blaze or whatever."
Yeah, and then I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm just as soon as he gets done saying that, I'm like, why?
this whole facility they didn't install like a sprinkler system.
Fire extinguishers? Anyway,
One fire
just one fire
extinguisher.
extinguisher could have solved this problem pretty quickly. And Bond blasts.
Priorities.
They have fire extinguishers in the tanker truck because Bond later blasts a henchman in the face and bashes his face with a fire extinguisher. So they have fire extinguishers in the truck,
And
but
technically,
not.
Sanchez is the one who started the fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's an irresponsible man.
So let's just move on. It's not the greatest.
Well, it moves on to the. How should we end this movie? Slow moving trucks.
I think the
first-
truck action's not that bad.
First, Dario
all
gets
right.
mulched, and Pam comes.
Well,
to
he
save
does.
Bond.
Sanchez does the classic Bond villain thing of he doesn't stick around to see Bond die. He just assumes that it will happen.
Well, he leaves his trusted, the only guy that he trusts there to
Yeah,
finish
the
it
only guy
off.
left.
Where all he has to do is cut Bond is hanging over this like mulcher that mulches up the cocaine, and all he has to do is cut Bond's ties that are what's holding him up. And he's doing it with a dagger, which usually is only pointy at the top and isn't really sharp on the sides, which is probably why he's having so much trouble doing it. But then he waits long enough for Pam to show up and shoot him. And I guess there was like this moment where he says, "You're dead," and she appears sort of like an angel. And I think they were trying to make reference to the fact that he shot her in the back earlier and didn't realize she was still alive.
But it's been
really,
a long
It's
time.
been a long time, and it really doesn't play. I watched the movie twice, and that's the only reason I kind of was like, oh, I see what they were going for there. It didn't work.
See, yeah, I didn't even catch that until now.
I got it because
Yeah.
it's a big deal that she gets shot.
I thought he was saying like, "You're dead. Like I'm gonna kill you."
No, he thinks that she's come back from the dead
From the
because
dead,
he
yeah.
sees her in all white because she stole the robes from the cult people.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
light is coming from behind her.
Yeah. It's weak and it doesn't work, but
It-
but that's what
it
they're
was
going
too
for.
far
They had it.
removed.
Yeah, they had a thing they were trying to do. And
That's one of those moments where it's like, hey, if you were following, this is
it's
good.
one moment,
But
It's
you
one
got to
moment.
be paying attention.
Yeah, you got to be paying attention to the movie that you're watching. Yes, I agree with that. I think that everyone should pay attention to the movies they watch.
Agreed.
So let's the tanker truck scene. We got 3 tanker trucks, some cars. Bond's in a tanker truck, or no, Bond's in a plane, and then jumps onto a tanker truck, and then commandeers a tanker truck.
Yeah, and Pam stays in the plane and kind of assists from the plane.
All the while they're driving on these windy
Mountain-
dirt roads,
yeah,
mountain
mountain roads.
Yeah,
With sheer
which is confusing
drop-offs.
to me because at that point it's clearly Mexico, but we thought we were still in Panama, I think.
Vaguely South
Yeah,
America.
They also don't say Panama because they call it Isthmus City.
Yeah.
Which
is
Panama is
we
the
all know
only
what you're
isthmus
talking about.
that's that would be that you could possibly reference in
we
South
got you guys.
America
Wink, wink.
or Middle
So,
Central America.
Harris, before you got here, I was telling Colin that I had read some interesting trivia about this scene. So, where they shot this chase scene is like a notorious area in Mexico where a lot of car accidents happen, and thus, like, it's sort of gotten this stigma around it that it's like a haunted road or a haunted, like, I don't know what you call that, like a hillside, you know?
You think it's because it's haunted or because it's fucking dangerous? Those roads are really
it's
windy.
dangerous,
Both.
but from all the people who have died in car accidents, they haunt it, right? So apparently, this production had a lot of like weird happenings. Like overnight, the trucks that they used would like just start driving off into nowhere, and people would have to ghost truck, right? And there's actually a famous picture, you can look it up if you Google it, where the production photographer was taking stills, you know, of like the action, and there's a scene where Bond is running and there's the explosion behind him, and it looks like a fiery hand is coming out of the explosion, and it's like they have other pictures of that shot like from different angles, and you don't see the hand, it's only in this like one shot. It's pretty scary.
It is pretty scary.
It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Crazy
Pretty
shit.
I thought that was cool.
I think it's
like
cool
it.
too. There are so many things that are physically impossible about the tanker truck driving sideways.
Oh man,
Especially
But
that
they
was
really-
hoping I would
really
get to
did
talk
it.
about
especially
that.
that especially that the driver of the other truck behind him
Wasn't there.
but he recognizes what's happening that far down the road and is able to dive out of the way before the rocket blows up his truck. Or that doing that would even avoid the stinger because it's not really changing like unless he's aiming at that side of the tire, it's not really changing it that much. However, what makes it work
You don't understand what happened.
what makes it work is that they do it practically.
Yeah.
It is impossible, and yet we see it. And
You
it
buy
actually,
it.
as opposed to a fire truck jumping a drawbridge in like with a bunch of cutting and editing.
Yeah, that was
we
dumb.
actually see this shit happening, and you know, and to top it all off, it crushes the fucking Jeep at the end.
Love
And it's
that.
like the
Yes.
perfect. It's a perfect stunt. The whole chase is pretty dope. It's one of the most creative chases I think in terms of what they do with
I
it.
thought from the moment that that Bond knocks over the gasoline and like starts the fire, that it all of a sudden kicked into high gear and became a Bond film.
Right.
Like before that, it was just kind of this like, I don't even know what, like a drug.
Miami Vice episode.
Yeah, a Miami Vice episode, totally.
which I think for me worked okay. I thought it was entertaining enough, and it definitely plot-wise made more sense, and I love the performances from a lot of the actors. But you're right, and this is almost the opposite of The Living Daylights, where that one lost me at the end because the villains were lame and the ending was so dumb, and so many stupid things happened in it. And this one was the exact opposite. If I was on the fence at all, this ending was like, fuck yeah, here we go. We got good bad guys, and we got a good chase, and we're going to just fucking light this shit on fire and blow it all up. And explosions, like practical explosions, huge. Like some of those tanker explosions were fucking massive.
It's like John Glenn knew this was the last one he was going to do.
Right, and he was like,
whatever.
how much explosives can you get me? I need all the explosives now.
Yeah, I love that he dodges a missile with a semi-truck.
Amazing.
The only part I don't like is when he gets to the wall of fire and then he does a wheelie, because I don't think that's how semi-trucks work.
Totally impossible. But it's also, but it's a great moment because that's when the Bond theme kicks in, when that truck comes roaring out of the fire. I had the exact same thought, but I was like, fuck it, I'll take it. I'm keeping it.
Yeah.
I mean, all the other stuff that happens, especially, I mean,
It's
no, you
somewhat
can't
plausible.
dodge a missile with a semi truck. No, but that was way better than seeing it do that weird wheelie, which I was like,
and the greatest thing that
he's
happens
just gonna
is
drive through the fire, and we already know what's happening.
as soon as you feel bad about him doing that weird wheelie and you're ready to write it off, but the Bond theme comes in, and then you're like, fuck yeah. And then the other car drives through, catches on fire, and then the engulfed in flames car
Flies
shoots
off a
off the cliff and narrowly misses the airplane. And it's just like,
well, and
like
also
how many awesome things could happen in 5 seconds? I don't know.
that was really cool, but also it right after that you get Bond on the back of the tanker getting chased by guys, opening the tanker to hose the chasing car with gasoline, and then lighting that on fire to blow them up, and then closing the tanker back so that the tanker keeps going, which is a great
And then she flies over some henchmen and she crop dusts
them.
onto them.
that was before that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a nice ending where he uses the Felix lighter to burn
A literal Felix lighter.
literal Felix lighter
That
to
scene's
burn
good.
Sanchez to death, sort of bring us all the way back around to the beginning of what he's doing all this for.
Right.
And a really good flaming stuntman and another huge practical explosion.
Yeah.
I mean, just
And it has
practical stunts, man.
It has what you like, where it has that moment where the villain seems to have the upper hand.
Right.
Yep.
And that's when Bond says, "Don't you want to know why I was doing this?" And he's like, "Oh,
And he quickly shows up. It was like very quick. Like I feel like Sanchez was like, "Wait, what is that?"
Yeah,
And, like, he just
it's
dies.
like it's a lighter. It's
Not a lighter.
about the size of 2 fingers.
That's my only weakness when I'm covered in gasoline.
Yeah, and he doesn't think about it because he has to read the inscription because that was the point.
He's like, what does it say?
And then it's-
what?
and then they realize, oh yes, this is a lighter.
But you also forgot to mention that they're on top of the tanker and fighting like on top, and he's trying to kill him with the machete.
Yeah.
And then they fly off a cliff, and it flips, and like somehow they're both unscathed.
But they are both wrecked. They're not unscathed because
You're
Bond,
right.
every shred
Bond's
of his
hair
clothing,
is
every shred of his
fluffed up.
clothing is torn, and he's got blood everywhere. And Sanchez is even worse because he's got all those things happening, and he's covered in gasoline.
Right.
He's literally he wakes up with gasoline pouring out of the truck into his face, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And somehow still manages to get the upper hand. No, it was.
Where
I
did that
thought it was an
machete
awesome
come
finale.
from?
Actually, the more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking this might be my favorite Bond finale. I mean, it's just so.
It was excellent.
It's just so good. There's just so many amazing, awesome things that happen. Like when that flaming car flies off the cliff and almost hits the plane, I'm just like, fuck yeah!
So then it cuts to their party, their celebratory party at Sanchez's house. Did you catch that?
Right, yeah.
And
well,
Bond
he's
is on the
dead.
phone with Felix, who is shockingly chipper
Yeah.
for a guy
they
who's
won.
lost his wife and his leg just a couple days earlier.
And then
he's alive.
the one thing I don't like, or I thought
Q
was
is double
kinda cheesy-
fisting.
Oh, we forgot to mention Q. Oh my God, there's so much Q in this movie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He has a serious role in this one.
What's her name? Kitana is trying to, get together with Bond at the end, and then he sees in the background that him kissing her has upset Pam Bouvier, who runs off. And then
Downstairs to the pool.
And
to be
then
alone.
Bond basically tells Talisa Soto, like, go with this guy instead, the president.
Right.
And she's like, all right, whatever.
Marry the puppet president of this banana republic. And she's like, yeah, I could do worse. Yeah.
She
Well,
just is like, all right, sure, whatever.
Her character was already, in the very, very beginning, was looking for a way out of the relationship by just trying to find some guy,
Right.
which this is a callback to, but it doesn't. You don't remember that because it's not.
It's been so long.
Yeah, and you don't get a lot of her character. You just get her like,
And then
you
Bond-
just get that she's gonna help Bond at the point where you realize that she's attracted to him.
Yeah. So Bond jumps off the balcony into the pool, surprising Pam Bouvier. He pulls her into the pool. They kiss. End of movie.
Roll the Surgeon General's warning.
Yeah. Warning, yeah,
Well, you
I
forgot
saw
the fish
that.
winking.
Oh yeah. There is a giant fish statue that winks.
There's
at the
that,
end
and
of
there's
the
another great part
Yeah.
when Bond wakes up in his room and he doesn't know where he is, and he looks at the foot of his bed, and there's that weird like face,
Oh yeah, the
like,
fish with the human
stat-
face.
Fish with a human face, yeah. Bunch of weird fish sculptures in
Yeah.
Sanchez.
Apparently,
I really liked his
Sanchez's
compound, though.
house was the set of some other late '70s show.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, his house and the preacher, Professor
Butcher.
Joe Butcher's whole deal,
Right.
were both really cool sets. I mean, I think they were both locations that existed. They weren't built specifically for this,
Yeah.
but they both had that grandiosity that you expect from these things.
Did you catch that cool like depth of field in camera trick that they did when the helipad opens up, like on Joe Butcher's like compound?
Oh yeah, the Clean on Empire logo helipad.
Yeah, yeah. But it's
That's a
like
Star Trek reference again.
if
but-
you look at it long, like it's on screen for long enough that you could figure out how they did the special effect. It's
Yeah.
like in the extreme foreground, but it's like matched to look like the stuff in the background. So when it opens up, it looks like the helicopter's flying into it. Yeah.
By the way, Colin, I see what you're doing. Stop trying to backdoor us into a Star Trek podcast. It's not going to happen.
This
my
is a
fault.
perfect time to announce our Star Trek podcast.
No, just having Star Trek knowledge is something that eventually comes out of me. I don't broadcast it, but eventually, if you want to find out, you'll be like, "Oh, Colin's."
It's like having
he's-
herpes.
He's seen a lot of Star
Eventually,
Trek.
people are going to find out.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I think we covered everything. Q is in this movie a lot. That's about all I got.
Yeah, I don't think we missed anything. I think that was a good, nice tight summary. We're ready for our 00 scale.
Yeah, let's rate this bitch.
Let's do it.
I went first last time, so someone else go. Colin, I think you're up.
Okay. It's 006. I liked it, but it just doesn't come together.
Wow. I appreciate the brevity,
This,
Colin.
no, this movie is not just okay. When we did Moonraker, that movie was very of its time. It was directly influenced by the other movies that were popular at the time and an attempt to get in on it. This movie is more of that, and I would say not just the most of its time James Bond film, but one of the most of its time films I've ever seen.
One of the most of its time films of its time.
No, of all time.
What do you mean when you say of its time?
The machine guns and the explosions.
The story elements, the way it's made, and the even the marketing of it are all attempts to do what the other movies and popular entertainment were doing, and even referential to pop culture as well as just the news and current events.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Harris, what do you think? So 006?
Yes.
I agree. I can't tell if you think that's a bad thing or not. I agree, and I think it's a good thing.
I think it's both.
Yeah, I think it's an important step in modernizing Bond, and I think it's what directly led to, the next sort of series of Bond movies being what they were. I think the combination of Timothy Dalton's short tenure as Bond, the darker take on the material, and like the perceived box office failure of the film, all contribute to this having sort of a negative overall reputation. I don't know what you guys thought, but I always thought, not having seen this in a while, I was always under the impression it wasn't very good. I think this is a much better entry than people remember. I think Dalton's Bond presages Craig's tougher, more grounded Bond in really important ways. I think the action has aged really well. particularly because of its use of like practical effects and adapting the action conventions of its time, which was a high point of Hollywood action. This is becoming the golden era of Hollywood action movies, and this movie sort of fits right into that. Like, yes, it was emulating what was happening then, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually taking some of the best parts of it. It had a great cast, a great villain, a great finale, and an unusually like coherent and clever script. So that put it over the top for me. So I went with a 008.
Whoa!
Wow,
For me
that's
is a pretty good one.
Well, I was gonna say, I kind of forgot to say, a lot of the things that you liked about it, I also saw. The poor screen chemistry with the love interests and the love scenes not being very good really hurts this movie a lot to me. I think you have to have that to make it a good Bond, is like a good mix of there being something going on with that. And this movie doesn't really have that going on. It's not that the women aren't good. They're beautiful, and I feel like they were bringing something to the performance. I did say Talisa Soto's performance wasn't very good, but she tried. And
You just have to play some pornography in the background while you watch this. Second screen this shit. That's all you need to solve all your problems.
oh, of course, I was doing it wrong because I forgot to put pornography on in the background. Now I understand.
Whenever you feel like something isn't working, give it a try.
And now on to Matt.
Well, I think I am somewhere in the middle of what both of you
Ooh,
are
I wonder
saying.
what number you're going to say.
I
Spoiler
too.
alert.
Okay, as a kid, I watched all of these movies. Mainly, like, I would go to Blockbuster Video, I would look at the cover or the title of the movie, and I'd say, this sounds good. And there were only 3 movies that I skipped for whatever reason. I never was interested, just off the box or the title, to rent them. And those movies were On Her Majesty's Secret Service, The Living Daylights, and License to Kill. And for whatever reason, just like the general look of it,
You just didn't like the Bonds you didn't know.
maybe I didn't like the Bonds that I didn't
I'm with
know.
you.
Yeah. But so these movies I saw later in life, and I think this one, like you said, has the stigma of like being, especially of the Timothy Dalton movies, like the worst one. And I have to say, I completely disagree. I think if we were to rank his movies, I would rank this one first and put Living Daylights second. It is a product of its time for sure, but so is Living Daylights in a more negative way, I think, a more dated way, with the whole Middle East thing, right?
Well, okay.
Yeah. I like the action in this. Like, I like the villains. I like Timothy Dalton's portrayal. And like I said in the cold open, like, I feel like we hardly knew ye. You know, had he gone on from here, I think he could have been considered a better Bond, you know? And it's unfortunate that he didn't he was contracted to do at least one more movie, right?
Yeah, they could just never get it off the ground because, for one thing, the studio was in financial trouble and Cubby Broccoli was in ill health, so that was a big part of the... And then also just the rights in general for the character were in dispute a little bit.
And don't they have a lot of rules? Like, when you're contracted to be Bond, you can't do certain things in other movies, right? Like, you can't take certain roles. For sure, you can't take anything that conflicts time-wise, but I think there's other... Like, you can't wear a tuxedo in another movie, right?
Yeah, and I think, but I think for him, I don't know. I think maybe the tuxedo stuff applied. I don't know if that scheduling stuff did because I don't think they ever got really close to shooting another one.
But I'm sure he wanted out to like go do other things.
He said as recently as the year before they shot Goldeneye, which is when his contract actually lapsed. He said he was down to do another one, and it wasn't until they really, you know. At some point that year he was like, you know what, if you call guys, I'm going to say no, and that's when they went out and actually got some momentum behind it. But everyone was excited, as I think 1994 it was. They thought they were going to get it off the ground. That's the closest they came. The last year of his contract.
Didn't Richard Maybaum died too? The guy who writes them.
The guy who writes them. Yep.
My research said the next film would have been partially set in Asia and would have had to do with nanotechnology. With Timothy Dalton, and it would have come out. That would have been 91. It would have come out. That would have been.
They were going
really
to use the title "Property of a Lady" for a while, which is a terrible title.
Yes, terrible.
And so it's better off that they didn't. I like the nanotech idea though.
I like how when
We should
it
still do
falls
that.
through with the actor, they just scrap the whole idea and like come up with something new.
Right.
Well,
This one was supposed to
kinda
take
going
place
on
in
right
Asia,
now.
but they said, we only have $32 million. This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is another interesting thing that we didn't really talk about is that the budget on this one went down. So that sort of tells you where the studio was at that point, where they're spending less money on their
confidence.
cash cow franchise, and then it underperformed. So
Yeah. So just to get back to my rating, I do want to give this the coveted 007, which I'm not sure if I've ever given to anything. I was looking at my previous rankings. I don't have all of them here, but I don't know if I've ever done it. But 007, I enjoyed it more than I remembered, and there's a lot of things that I don't know. I just really dug. One thing also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, somebody get a calculator out. 006, 008, 007. What does that average out to?
Oh, you know it. You know it.
So should we say one more thing about Timothy Dalton as this is his farewell?
Yeah.
Well, you guys both said something about him. I didn't really. I like him. I think he did a good job. And that's it.
Well, I also want to say that, like, for me, in the way I like picture these movies in my mind, all lined up, like there is a clear divider between the old James Bond movies, the classic films, and then ushering in the modern era. And I think after this movie, we are leaving the old behind and like entering the modern Bond as we know it.
Especially with the 6-year gap. I mean,
There's a 6-year gap. It's the longest gap between movies that that this series has ever had. And like so much from 1989 to 1995, like visual styles and like filmmaking style wise, like so much has changed.
yeah.
Musically, I don't know. I feel like even color correction like processes were different. Like they could make like movies look differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I was talking to you about it, and to me, these movies look a lot more like the style of television from the same era.
Yes.
And it's a lot of those things, and a lot of it was, I think, when they in the 80s they were taking cues from some of the things they did on television as similar production styles, and then by the mid 90s cinema was developing a sort of a separate vein.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you would feel that that's accurate. I don't know what Harris
To
thinks.
play devil's advocate a little bit, I do think that part of it is that I think if we went back and watched Dr. No, we would not think this looks like License to Kill. I mean, I think we've seen it change gradually, and I think the big gap is the biggest differentiator between those movies and these ones. I think in terms of the content and the way the movie's shot and the tone of the films, I think Timothy Dalton's run is the beginning of the sort of modern era where it becomes more of an action film and less of what it traditionally had been with Connery and Roger Moore. I do think there's I think this sort of, is sort of a preview of what we're going to see, a much more action-oriented Bond with obviously the next series of movies and the ones that we see today. So I think a lot of the look of the film and the filmmaking techniques, I think it's just because we have a gap there where we don't get to see it transition, whereas otherwise we've seen a movie come out every 2-3 years. So they're really, if we look over time, even in the Roger Moore era, there were significant changes from the beginning of that to the end that we didn't really notice because it was happening so gradually.
I know we're running out of time, but real quick, if there was a Bond film that came out in 1991, let's talk about what that would be. Who would direct it? Who would star it? Who would the villain be?
Oh, what was they were saying the style of this movie was really similar to the style of, I think, the guy who directed Lethal Weapon 1 and a bunch of others.
Richard
Silver
Donner.
or something?
Richard Donner?
No,
no.
His name was Silver, I thought. But
Ron,
I guess
Ron Silver, Joel Silver.
Joel Silver, right?
Ron Silver's an actor.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are his other? I should have looked.
I
it
thought
up.
maybe Richard Donner produced Lethal Weapon movies.
Richard
Well,
Donner.
I might be wrong about Lethal Weapon, but he
yeah.
did. Joel Silver did some other stuff.
Joel Silver did did he do The Matrix?
No, those are the Wachowskis.
But producing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he did do the original Lethal Weapon. He did the original Die Hard. He did the original Predator.
Right.
So it's much more. I
He
would.
directed those?
No, he
Or
produced.
produced
Joel
them?
Silver
Yeah,
produced
because I was going to say McTiernan directed a couple of those,
both
I think.
two of those. Yeah.
Okay. But I think we would get something that sort of was more of a peak of that style, of that direction that they were going in already.
Yeah, I feel like we would probably get something. I actually think.
Yeah, like I could see like Jan de Bont or Rennie Harlan.
Right. Yeah.
directing.
I was going to say
Yeah.
Rennie Harlan or hell, Richard Donner. Like I feel like that's or McTiernan. They were action movie directors, and I think that's probably where it would have gone to the heavier emphasis on action. And I absolutely think they would have taken Timothy Dalton again, because I don't think there was any
Yes.
complaints about the strength of his performance in these. Even at the time, I think he didn't have the backlash that Lazenby had years earlier.
Like these actors are both in Last Action Hero. Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat. Another, what's her name? Doesn't anyone know her actual name? She's from Billy Madison also.
Right. Veronica Vaughn.
Veronica Vaughn, let's just call her that. I could see her as a Bond girl
I used
in a
to know her real
1991
name.
film.
I forgot it though.
And also, do you remember the villain with the axe in Last Action Hero on the
Oh,
rooftop?
yeah, that guy?
I feel like that guy's a perfect Bond villain or a henchman.
Uh-huh.
Like a big, tall, like
Well-
scary-looking henchman.
The one guy was already the other villain from Last Action Hero.
Was in a Bond
He
film,
was already
right?
in a Bond.
He was a henchman.
But I could see them making him a main.
Charles Dance.
Yeah, he would be an excellent main.
Because I remember when we were talking about him being in the previous one, I was like, I didn't even recognize him.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, what could have been? Wow. Just the 90s, man.
Wow.
All right. So are we giving this a license? Another license. This movie's going to have two licenses. A license
A
to kill.
license to kill and a license to watch.
But how will we spell it?
How will we spell it? That's the question. Yeah.
I definitely give this a license to watch.
Yep. I concur.
License to watch, unless you're squeamish about sharks
Gore.
eating legs
Or heads exploding.
Heads exploding.
There's
But look away for those.
tons of
things.
sharks and sharkies in this movie.
Sharks and sharkies and exploding heads. And explosions.
Do you think the head exploding was trying to rival the head explosion in Scanners? When was that movie?
Wasn't that the earlier in the 80s?
Yeah, 83 or something, 82.
Yeah. I think it was just they were like, hey, I bet we have some money kicking around. We can make a head explode.
Yeah.
We have an outro song this week, don't we?
81 was Scanners.
81.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So this is much more advanced.
We do have an outro song. Our buddy,
Our old friend
C-Rock,
C-Rock.
he's back.
Yep. Check this. You can check this one out at Mendo Rock on SoundCloud.
SoundCloud. Yep.
Yep.
And while this plays us out, I will say thanks for listening. If you like the show, please rate us on iTunes. Give us a shout out on social media, or hit up our inbox at Bondcast, jamesbondcast@gmail.com, or go to the James Bond subreddit and where we post all the episodes, and let us know what you think of the show. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Send us some messages. People have, people will, hopefully. Help us spread the word of Bond. We will be back with
James Bond will return in
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
Peace.
Vodka martini, ¿qué?
Shaken, not stirred.
Perhaps I better quit for the night.